I'm not going to be any use to anyone this film club. Just get my notes.
I like my notes at home. I don't think I took many notes though.
I didn't take any notes.
I took more notes than I've taken for any film.
Don't give anything away.
I took more notes than I took in GCSE English.
Hello everyone.
Hello. Hello everyone.
So I chose Songcatcher.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Why
we
did you
should
choose
talk about
Songcatcher?
Someone in Australia said, "Have you ever seen Songcatcher? It's this amazing film about someone who goes into the Appalachian Mountains and listens to music. You should watch it." I thought, well, if I'm going to watch a film recommended to me by a 60-year-old or 70-year-old, then you lot will join me. And that was my only reason for choosing it.
Cool.
And I'd be very interested to hear what everyone thinks about it. Shall we do
Quick
a
fire round.
preliminary thumbs up, thumbs down?
No?
I'm going thumbs up. Preliminary
thumbs
thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Very
All right.
good. Very good, Phil.
Thumbs up, and I
Yep.
would like to say that I did not have just one thumb up.
It was
Two, yes.
yes.
Yeah.
For the listening audience, Fernando had 2
Thank you.
thumbs up.
Very
Excellent.
enjoyable.
This was
Yeah.
one of the best films we've seen, I think.
Yeah, I was really surprised how
Second
good
only
it
to
was.
Napoleon Dynamo.
And song to song.
So yeah, there was always the potential it was just a disaster of a film.
Yeah.
And when it became clear that it was difficult to find, I
High
did start to worry.
I did too a little bit. I thought, like, is there a reason that a film that's only 19 years old is basically impossible to get a hold of? We have to, like, import it from from the US.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So
no, it was amazing.
Yeah. What did we like?
The music.
Did you
Number
like the
one.
music?
Loved the music.
You're talking about the songs.
The songs.
Yeah,
That she
The
caught?
the musical instruments. All
Yeah.
of the music.
excellent.
Excellent. Good plot. Yep. Very happy.
Yep.
What about you?
Yeah, I thought the music was good, but the thing that struck me was just the feeling of that mountain. And they didn't. A lot of films that are going for a particular feeling or emotion behind everything tend to spend a lot of time dwelling on establishing shots and stuff. And this didn't. It really was a film with people walking into places, and it was very dialogue driven. But somehow I got such an impression of what the mountain culture and society was like, and such a feeling of what it was like to be there, that I thought that was great. And the music came into that, and just made it feel so real. I guess a lot of films I'm very aware that I'm watching a film. I think like, oh, it's interesting how they did that, and oh, that shot must have been difficult to do. And this is one of the rare films where I completely forgot, and it could have just been a camera following something that really happened.
Okay.
It absolutely defied disbelief. It was just spot on. Everything just felt so realistic and true to life. Yeah. Why did you like it, Fernando?
Well, there were several things that I liked, and only I think one thing that I did not like. I liked how it was about someone that had studied for a long time, that had a PhD in music. That she found something so enthusiastic, even when she decided to quit the. Well, I mean, I wasn't sure whether she quit her position at the university after not being promoted to the full-time professorship, but she went to the mountains. It was, and then she found something that she was very interested in, and all the skill required. And when she started like to draw is it called pentagram? The bars, the 5 line.
There's the staff, the stave on which she was.
Oh, okay.
A pentagram is like a 5-pointed star.
Oh, okay. Well, it was not a pentagram. Yes. And she started just writing music out of things that were sung was also very interesting. Also, the many themes that were covered. Not only that, but also different sexual orientations and the way in which people behave when exposed to different sexual orientations, and of course the intolerance, the unfortunate intolerance, which I don't know where that originally comes from. I wonder if it is something that you are taught.
I think religion has a lot.
And if religion is, I've questioned myself a lot whether Christianity has to do with homophobia. And in fact, every time that I encounter a divinity student, one of my first questions is, do you think that the Bible is homophobic? And some of them, they have varied answers. Some of them are, I don't want it to be homophobic. The other answer is, no, it isn't. And some others prefer not to have an opinion on whether it is or not. Regardless, even if it isn't homophobic, I think the text has been used with homophobic purposes.
Yep.
So all the topics. The only thing that I did not like is that she doesn't stay to record everything again.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can continue with this man.
Yeah, agreed.
Afterwards. Why are you not staying?
It's only been a month. Just get some more bloody wax.
Yeah. But overall, it was a film that I really enjoyed.
Great.
Excellent. Yeah, I found myself enjoying it, and I was sceptical. Just because that whole, like, patronising twee, like, oh, someone goes out into the wilderness and finds the people who live in the country and is so enamoured with them and their way of life. But she wasn't. She didn't turn up and be like, oh, this is so amazing, I want to live here forever. She was like, oh, this is really fascinating as an intellectual. I want to take that knowledge to other people and share that. And yeah, I found myself really enjoying it. I really enjoyed the sort of accidental, strong female characters. Like, it didn't feel deliberate, but protagonist was a female. Her sister and her girlfriend were, like, really important characters. And, like, it didn't seem forced. It didn't seem like there was a message that was being pushed. It was just there, and that was like, this is how this story's told, kind of how it should be, like 50-50. It just was, which is nice.
It was very nice. It felt like it was from much long before 2000. I thought I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been filmed in like the 80s, early 90s. So not that much long.
Well, it is Australian, isn't it? So.
Yes,
And why do you say that?
Oh, I don't know, just the quality, I think, probably of the film.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was great.
just probably that, to be honest. But
Good.
it reminds me of some other films that I have seen, which I'll probably discover from like the noughties.
Yeah.
Your comment makes me think of Leon the Professional that we watched, which was from 1994, I think only 6 years before the film that we watched, and that one does look like really old.
Okay.
So maybe, even though this one is set in a, maybe, as in, it is meant to be even before 1994, this one looks newer, I think. The images look sharper, or at least that was my opinion. Did you not agree?
No, I don't agree at all.
So you think that Leon looks more modern than this one?
Yeah, I thought Leon had a certain flair and a certain style, possibly just because it was set in New York City in the modern day, and this was set in the middle of nowhere 100 years ago. But I guess the lower resolution and whereas we watched Leon in like glorious HD, and it was very like high production value movie type film.
I see. I see.
But however, the actual facts are on your side, which is Songcatcher is newer by 6 years.
You're technically right, which is the best kind of right.
Well, what I don't have an opinion on is how it made you feel. And I can see that.
It reminded me of fried green tomatoes. Just in the
again.
style and quality, which is from 1991.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It reminded me of two films, one of which
Me
is
too. Go on.
Ladies in Lavender.
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a really good film.
Yep.
And the reason it reminded me of that is because of this just spot on, completely watertight period costume and stuff.
Yep.
There wasn't a single thing that made me think, oh, that dress looks too modern, or oh, they wouldn't have said that back in the olden days, or whatever. It just seemed like it was a documentary. And the other film would be Anne of Green Gables, which possibly matches up with what the two of you say, which is it's a film, a sort of made-for-TV film from the 1980s, which had the same kind of production values and the same sort of feel to it, the way it was filmed and stuff. It seemed quite old. Yeah. What was your other film?
Well, two other films, actually. So I suppose it would be 3 films. But the other two were Oh Brother, Wherefore Art Thou? Seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it just Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, the jail
that's
one.
the one. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh
That's
Brother,
fine.
Where Art Thou? But I think
Coen
that's mainly
Brothers.
the music.
Yep.
Nothing else. And the other one was A Streetcar Named Desire.
I've never seen that.
I haven't
Have you
seen that.
not?
I've heard of it.
Oh. I shall say no more.
I thought, could be interesting. I thought of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou while I was watching it because of the song about death, which sounds... I thought to start with that it was the exact same song that the executioners sing just before they're going to put to death some of the prisoners in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. Says, oh, death. But I think it was a different song, but it was very, very similar. And there was a lot of folk music in that film, the same. Yeah. Though it had such a different tone as a film overall.
Yeah, but the music carrying the film
Yeah.
and not being a musical. It wasn't Fiddler on the Roof, where all the characters break out into dance as if
Yeah.
that's normal or anything. Yeah, it was just there is music as an ambient part of life.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's got the same thing going. Oh. I'm very relieved that it paid off. I would just like to say, because it was a gamble.
So was it an Australian film?
I think the production team was Australian.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd never have known. I figured it was going to be set in Australia and have Australian actors. And
I knew it was set in America, but
yeah, okay.
Was she from England? Were they in England at the beginning?
no.
I always thought they were in England. Did she have an English accent?
No, she had a
No.
posh American accent.
I always thought, okay.
I think the
Because the
only
guy at the end has an English accent.
Uh-huh.
The full professor.
Yeah.
Prick. Even though he was really nice.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Turned up to take credit for her taking credit from them.
She said she was. He said he was going to be her assistant.
Yes,
and
well,
after she
and
said
she-
she didn't want to do it, he insisted on putting her name on it first.
Yes, well.
You make a good point.
He was wearing silly goggles.
Yeah.
He was wearing
A
silly
stupid
goggles.
moustache.
I thought that was interesting that he came in a car, a motor car.
Yeah.
Because until they had a conversation, I thought he was going to be the horrible, arrogant character we'd sort of been told he was.
Yeah.
But then it turned out he wasn't, which was... And sort of bringing the
nice,
car
wasn't
was a bit showy, and obviously that's not an appropriate vehicle for the terrain.
Yeah.
Get on a horse. So I thought that was quite a nice way to sort of keep that going and then just snap you out of it really quickly.
Yeah, I thought he was going to remind me of the Cole Prospector.
Yeah.
He was the only one
Yeah.
wearing a tie for the whole thing, and but utterly otherwise.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice way to just like top you up into, oh, this guy's arrogant, and then
Should we talk about the Cole perspective?
oh, do
Was
we
his name
have to?
Giddens?
I don't know.
So the Cole Perspective.
The Cole man.
Yeah.
The evil man.
Yeah.
Wasn't he
He's-
a bastard?
He was a bastard, wasn't he?
Did you enjoy that? Or did you find you would have liked more nuance in his villainy?
Perhaps I would have liked more nuance in his villainy. I didn't think of that. I hated him. I wanted him out of there. Yeah, what did you think of him?
Yeah, I like a good villain. I don't need nuance in my villains.
Cool. And in a way, there was some nuance to him. I didn't expect him to start singing at the hoedown after he'd just been beaten
Do you know
up
that
and he was
that was
holding
the
a gun.
one jarring moment for me, was him singing. I thought,
Right.
why is he doing this? Like, why is this character singing right now?
Hmm.
Except to show us that even the bad people in the hills find music really important.
Hmm.
I think he would have said, oh, you're all hicks and scum, and walked off in a strop.
Yeah, but he said a couple of times before, didn't he? He made it clear that he was one of them. And he said things like, "Oh, we want to show this lady that we're not all just country yokels," and we.
Yeah,
But
okay.
he was saying we. He was
He was,
one of
wasn't
them. It was surprising, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd never expected him to start singing. Yeah.
And then the guy after him with a moustache and the random high notes at the end of every other line. I enjoyed his singing. Always kept me guessing. Did you like the villain?
I did. I did not think he was as evil as it seems that you all three think
He
he
was
is.
so evil. He was.
I just
stealing
thought the
your
other
life.
person, I can't remember his name, but the one that discovers the two teachers in the
Oh
woods.
yeah.
I thought he was
Fate.
extremely evil. As in, he was more evil than this other person that was wearing a tie all the time.
He was a stupid kid though. Is there some defence in him being?
Well, I think the only defense that I can think of is that in reality there is no good and there is no evils, and there are no good and there are no evil people. But
And he did a bad thing.
yeah,
And that's all we have to judge him on.
I have some notes about him, and they lead into this idea of homophobia. What I've written is that I've taken notes on his destructive ignorance. So we saw a few different escalating examples of his ignorance. The first one was he broke the fan.
Yeah.
He broke this girl, the only nice thing she had ever had that she was so proud of, and as soon as he saw it, he broke it because he was jealous. And because he didn't know where this had come from, he didn't know why he'd got it, he knew nothing about it, he just didn't understand that he broke it. The second one was he throws the recorder down.
Yep.
So, in fairness, she's been pushing him all day. He never wanted to bring the thing at all. She's not listening to him when he says, this is too big to bring up the mountain, you can't do this. But then just in his anger, he just hurls it down the mountain, pushes it down, knowing it's so valuable, knowing he's going to break it and could ruin all her studies. The third one is when they get the letter that they need the urgent letter, and he discovers how urgent it is. He snatches it off the girl and immediately throws it in the bush. And only because she's faster than him does she actually manage to grab it and run off with it. And the final one is he burns down the school. And all of these are examples of hatred of something that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand why she's got the fan, or how she could have been paid just for singing. He doesn't understand why she wants to record the music and why the recorder is so important to her, so he pushes it down the cliff. He doesn't understand what the letter's for. He just knows that it's a part of the outside world, and so he gets rid of it. And he doesn't understand why two women might fall in love. He just sees it as just something unfamiliar, and so he attacks it, as he does with all of these things. And he was such a consistent character in that way. I think that's part of why this film was so good, was the consistency in the characters.
That's a really interesting point. I just thought, oh, he's just a kid with a temper problem. But he was just reacting to that's scary, because I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, that's true.
And they rubbed in so much. I think they gave us an idea that it's not specifically so in terms of the people who were against the two women falling in love were essentially him, his mate, and the minister.
Yeah.
And the minister seemed to be a zealot.
Yeah, he was a bit mad.
Yeah, a bit mad, a bit fire and brimstone, a bit over the top. And the two kids just didn't understand anything.
Well, it's the same guy that was out with the love interest at the start of the film.
Yeah.
So presumably he's just like the local troublemaker, one of the guys who gets involved in whatever mischief he can do. Or
We never really found out about him, did we?
Heaven forbid. A male character that wasn't fully developed.
We don't need male representation in films.
He wasn't even pretty.
How did he get on camera? Anyway, all the other characters, even while standing in the church building and being berated by the minister, stood up and either said nothing or said, I think it was really stupid to burn down the school. The teachers were doing a good thing. The guy saying, I never knew anything and my kids never know anything, but I was hoping for better for my grandkids. That they weren't all just ignorant and they didn't all hate lesbians. I think even did the love interest, whatever his name was, did he say something
Bledsoe?
No,
Bledsoe?
That was
Blisto?
I should have written down the names. I usually try and write down the names. It wasn't.
I think it was
Bisto.
Bledsoe or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the love interest.
He said something like, oh, those two are, what would you call it, sweethearts? That doesn't bother me. And then he said something that I slightly missed, which could have been something like, I've seen that sort of thing before, or...
I don't think he said that. I can't remember exactly what he said.
I didn't quite catch it. Anyway, yeah, most of them were okay, and it was just people who had their own problems, who were actually upset about it. Just ones who had become bitter or frightened, who were actually attacking the two women.
It was only Eleanor who was left at that point, wasn't it? Her partner had left. Was it Harriet?
Yes, they'd just turned up at the church, hadn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, because even like the prof from the outside world, the enlightened outside world, I did air quotes there. It's like, oh well, it's not your fault, sister. You know, you've been led astray by an older woman, you know. The Enlightenment wasn't an outside world hicks who live in the mountains sort of thing. I think it was good to make that clear that it wasn't.
And yet she was quite critical to start with, wasn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
Broke down in tears. Yeah.
Couldn't understand it. I don't even know if she was okay with it in the end. Because when Bristol was telling her that he was okay with it, she was never like, oh yeah, me too.
I don't think she was.
You don't think she was?
No.
You don't think she was okay with it?
No.
No. However, she did say to her sister, maybe you two should... It was after the school burned down, had said maybe the two of you should... Because the sister was saying, oh, she's gone now, I'll never see her again. And she said, well, why don't you go down to the town? You can live as you please there. Almost trying to give her a way to stay with her lover.
I think she grew to accept it.
I at least think she grew to tolerate
it, yeah.
But why don't you think that she...
Well, maybe because I think it was just a brief period of time, and I don't think that someone changes an opinion specifically on that matter so suddenly.
Okay.
It seemed very ingrained gut reaction to it that was very visceral. This is disgusting. I think she actually said that.
I mean, to be fair, if you walk in on a sibling having sex, that is pretty
Yeah,
pretty disgusting
that's upsetting.
anyway.
Really upsetting. She saw her sibling naked as well.
Yeah.
No, you don't want that. No. But something I noticed was she said to her sister something like, I suppose I can see what you're doing here, stuck out in the middle of nowhere. And with her being so much older and more experienced than you.
Yeah, I think that was her trying to say, oh, my younger sister has been led astray. Okay. This is, she's a victim
fault.
here.
Yeah.
She's being abused by the older woman. This isn't that
as if the older woman was the one to blame.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This isn't that my little sister happens to love women.
Yeah.
Because that's unthinkable. Yeah. What's happened here is some sexual predator is taking advantage.
And can it possibly be a coincidence that she herself had just come from somewhere where she was in a forbidden relationship with someone much older than her? I immediately thought, this is about her own relationship, isn't it?
I see. I don't know, I'm going to have to be convinced on that one. I'm not sure about that. I think it was just homophobia.
Possibly. We could imagine that someone at that time would have, at least to start with, reacted against a same-sex couple. But I wonder if just like a young man who hates things he doesn't understand, or just hates things because he's angry and he's got such a bad life himself, whether she had, maybe I'm reaching a bit far here, but whether she saw this relationship with her sister and immediately brought it back to her own relationship that she wasn't supposed to be having, that she had to keep a secret, that was with an older and more experienced partner. It just seemed funny that she would bring that up. But your reasoning is different.
It's interesting that he was lying to her. He, like the two women were in a loving, happy relationship, and he lied to her about voting for her full professorship, and lied in the letter about what the English professor intended, because he said he wants you to stay on as his assistant, which hurt her. It made her vulnerable.
Why would he want to do that?
To keep her low, keep her needy.
Classic abuser.
Yeah,
negging her.
He was negging her.
Yeah. Oh, that's not how I saw it, but I see what you're saying.
What?
So do you know how she was having an affair with
Yes.
the guy? And he said, "Oh yes, I was defending you. I was the only one speaking for you." But she called him out on it because she knew
He wasn't.
he hadn't voted for her.
The guy
And then
told
in the
her it was
letter,
unanimous.
he lied in the letter.
Yes.
So it was as if he was trying to keep that control over her. So she was in this abusive relationship. So yeah, maybe she was projecting onto her baby sister or whatever.
That's something I hadn't seen, the abusive nature of that. I saw it as a more just non-committal, not going as far as you should do for someone you're in love with, but just a guy who was a bit useless.
It was when he lied in the letter.
Yeah,
That's what did it for me.
It hadn't occurred to me. I thought that must have been just a miscommunication. He just got his lines crossed and just obviously assumed that
She would be
the
assistant.
woman would be the assistant, and maybe trying to keep her down. Yeah. But she was not to be kept down under any circumstances. It was good seeing her strength of character and her determination. What do you think of all this?
Yeah. I wonder if she was strong in the beginning. She seemed a little weak to me, probably because of all of her prejudices.
Her own prejudice.
Her own prejudices against all the people she met, her own sister. She kind of made some steps to address them, but
How so?
I definitely think he was abusive.
Yeah, okay. You felt that way as well?
Yeah,
hearing
I think-
about the
yeah.
letter and stuff. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can...
Wait, I
believe
agree
that.
with you both. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When I said one, I was just reacting with surprise to your reaction.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It looks like it's 3 against 1, Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
I agree with you guys. No, that does seem reasonable. It was an error of communication is not a very satisfying ending to
Oh,
a
it
film.
happens so often though. So, I didn't think you'd take it that way. I didn't think you'd understand it that way. That's not what I meant. Like, it happens all the time in those sorts of relationships.
Oh, it's someone deliberately trying to
Yeah.
get the other one down
Yeah.
and then playing ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You're like, well, I wasn't sure what he'd said.
Let's see.
Obviously, that's what I thought. What else would he have meant?
Well,
Bloody
she's,
man.
she's not getting back with him.
Yeah.
Only rugged
Yeah.
alcoholic.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
looks like, what's his name? Oh, the name's gone. Carry on amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
Oh,
He does look like Bradley Cooper.
Don't know who that is.
no.
Bearded Bradley Cooper, honestly.
Who's Bradley Cooper?
Yes. Wait, is this the person from
Looks
the
like it's 3 against 1 again.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not sure I see that at all.
Is this
have to look
someone
him
you all know, or is this a famous...
He's a
Yeah,
famous
Brad,
man.
he works in...
From A Star Is
That's-
Born, I think.
I haven't seen this.
Find a good picture of him.
Yeah, he's good looking though.
God, he's never not photographed with women.
He's a good-looking man.
That's Bradley Cooper there.
Yeah, looks a bit like him. It wasn't him though.
No, it wasn't.
No. Yeah. But yeah, she's with him now. So that's it.
He's been to the outside.
That was an interesting one,
Down
wasn't
the
it? She said when they go to the other world, they come back and they're never the same.
I thought she actually meant Europe. I thought she he went to England and came back.
He went to Cuba, didn't he?
In the war.
In the
What?
war.
Oh,
That's where he got his guitar.
Yeah.
oh, I thought he went to England.
Oh, you got
Oh, no. Yeah,
you
no.
thought that was what was
Europe.
meant by the other world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think,
I'm just so used to it being referred to like the new world and the
Mm.
old world.
I think it was just that he went to the city.
Right.
Or the
Yeah, I
town.
took it to mean the mountain and not the mountain.
Didn't they say across the sea?
In Cuba?
Well, I think maybe he did go across the sea
Right.
on military service.
Yes. Okay, well that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
Oh, you're always objectifying the love interest.
We can't even remember his name. But we can't remember any of their names, so that's
Bisto.
okay.
Mr. Bisto.
Close enough.
I remember
banjo.
Fate and Eleanor,
I remember Eleanor
Who was Eleanor?
and
The sister.
Dis.
the one from Frasier.
Okay. Just a minute.
Desmond.
The
Yes.
lady.
The young woman.
Mm.
The young child. The
Oh,
orphan.
yeah, I don't remember her name.
The lady.
Oh, she
The
was
lady?
great.
Oh
The
yeah,
ladies?
it was Dale, wasn't it?
Yes.
Deleda,
Yeah,
it could have been.
Yeah. She was great.
Oh, she was fantastic,
Yeah.
wasn't
Amy Rossum.
she? Yeah, she's well famous.
Didn't
now.
realise it was Amy Rossum until the end.
Yeah.
Do you know Amy Rossum?
No, I don't think so.
She was in Phantom of the Opera. The film.
Oh, I saw that.
Shameless.
I haven't seen that. That's quite good, isn't
I don't know. I haven't seen it either.
it? Okay.
I've seen bits of it.
Yeah, bits of it.
Yeah, she was one. She had such a sort of uncynical, just wide-eyed curiosity and happiness that was wonderful. It was interesting that the first time that she heard this one of these old songs that have been around for generations, she heard it from someone so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was great. And I'm glad she got away from her sweetheart
Skip.
in the end. Skip.
I don't think that was his name.
Yeah,
think it was
We'll call
Fate.
him Skip. Sorry?
Fate.
I think that's what they were saying.
Fate. Okay.
Or Tate, or
Finn.
It's the angry young man.
8. Something 8.
Yeah, okay.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Did we all like Viney?
I love
Oh,
Viney.
wasn't
I've got
Viney
a whole
great?
paragraph about Viney.
Yeah.
And
The old grandma.
what is it about like old woman actors? They just always seem to completely steal the scene,
Yeah.
and they're just so watchable whenever I see one. And they so rarely appear in films and TV shows. Viney.
She was just great,
she's-
wasn't she?
Yeah, I could have watched her all day.
Making the joke about sex.
Yeah, the way she accidentally said something and then they all giggled. Yeah. Yeah, she was just so in charge. And no one crossed her for a second.
Do it, woman!
What was that?
When a woman was giving birth and the lady did it. Yes.
Yeah. It was wonderful. And just this feeling that she was more experienced than anyone else there. She was acting like she delivered 100 babies and she probably had.
Not again.
Just no nonsense from anyone. Yeah. Yeah, she was brilliant. And so much fun as well. I thought maybe she was going to die during the film.
Oh no.
And I'm so glad she didn't, and they left her just as they'd found her, just going about her life. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I just found her so likeable as a character.
Certainly knew how to do a likeable character.
They did, didn't they? Yeah, the likeable characters were likeable and the villains were villains.
Yeah.
In it.
That being said, I've never really warmed to... What's her name? The main one.
Main
Lily.
character.
Lily, that's the one. Yeah, I never warmed to her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was alright.
She was
She was ambitious, wasn't she?
ambitious and she was strict. And
She was passionate about collecting.
yeah.
It was a bit... I think...
Did you not like how she liked everything to be scientific?
Agreed, yes. First of all.
I did immediately think of you.
Extremely pretentious.
No, that has not been collected scientifically. That is going in the fire.
She could have been a bit nicer a couple of times, couldn't she?
He's too young. Not a reliable source.
In a way, rather that than a scientist that goes like, oh yes, of course I'll put your thing in the report.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because she's a woman, isn't she? And women are prone to emotions and being swayed by the emotional argument. And she's like, well, no, it's not scientific.
So unsentimental, yeah.
Which is what let science down, I think, because she lost all that music.
It was
Because her sister was a
unreliable.
lesbian. That's nothing to do with her being a bad scientist. Nice try, though.
No, but she did. She missed out on a lot of songs and a lot of source material. She dismissed it without even checking it. She's like, oh, this isn't a standard notation system. Bin that.
Did she do that?
Yeah, remember when the pregnant woman came up to her first and handed her this huge... She'd taken the trouble to write it all out, and she was like...
I know.
Not scientific, sorry. Just
Fair enough. She gets that back to the university, and then 100 years later they find out, oh, it turns out the people in that town wrote this differently,
just
and we've been
transcribe
singing
it.
it wrong for 100 years.
You have someone replicate it while you've got it there, and you transcribe it.
valuable source material.
You say, is this what you meant? And then if she says no, you don't write it down.
Oh, that's not very scientific, though, is it? They,
That's really scientific.
Is this what you meant? They go, oh, yeah, that definitely. You're prejudicing the subjects straight away if you play them the tune and then go, oh, is that the song that you normally
She
sing?
could have them sing it and compare it against what she has in front
Oh,
of her.
sure, but then she might as well throw it away, right?
No.
She could just have them
She
sing
could
it and write
archive
it down.
it.
Otherwise,
Maybe
then she's
they're
got
not-
some songs that she wrote down from them singing and other songs that she wrote down from them singing with an extra thing that she's going to half copy.
Yeah, but maybe they can't sing as well. And so the notation tells her what the actual notes are.
Well, I don't know about that.
Why?
She's trying to record what they're singing, right?
She's notating it herself, though, is it?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She didn't
was
record everything.
recording it in manuscript.
Yeah, but she's at least able to record things consistently if she does it herself, using her own notation.
I would simply not
This
trust
is a
anything that's not
classic
done later.
white male disregard of indigenous knowledge and expertise.
I beg to differ.
I'm sure you do.
Can't win. I want to talk about the way they treated essentially indigenous people. They weren't indigenous at all, but the way they treated
So far.
like distant people who weren't part of what we might call civilization.
Yeah.
Which was, again, brilliant. Films tend to either portray people in isolated communities on the top of a mountain. They're either going to be, like, frightening savages, or they're going to be people that you think are frightening savages, but then it turns out they're immensely wise and they commune with nature. And I thought they did a really good job of getting across the idea that people who live in distant, isolated communities are basically still just people, and some of them are bad and some of them are good, and they've all got problems, and they've got some of the problems we have and some other problems, but people are just basically the same everywhere. And I thought they did a really good job of that, as far as I could see, and did a pretty good job of... They occasionally had, like, classic signs of being, like, ignorant yokels, and they showed why that was. They showed why people had these prejudices, and they showed why... And they showed occasionally...
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so our friend Bisto, the love interest, he was really, really disrespectful and quite hateful towards Lily, thank you. And he was drunk, and he was rude and cruel, and we later discovered he had been married twice and both of his wives had died because they had no medicine, and they lived in such
My God, that scene was a roller coaster for me. Just after the birth, when she comes out, and I didn't realise he was drunk. I thought the kid was his, and that's why he was over emotional.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that he wasn't just this obnoxious git who was sleeping around and having kids with other people's wives while the guy had run away. And he was actually he was really hurt. He needed some emotional support. That was, what a scene.
Yeah.
Like an onion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all I wanted to say.
Yeah, so they had such a difficult life just because of how tough the place they lived was. And this led to people becoming bitter, and that led to feuds, it led to people pointing guns at each other, and this led to more destructive behaviour, which just made life worse for everyone. We could see this sort of vicious cycle, and it was so human and so real, and it, just totally made sense for me, so... Well, they were not Indigenous. They did a good job of. They did a good job of explaining people who live outside the connected community we live in.
Yeah, his lives were very much shaped by the landscape that they were in, responding to the land.
Yeah, how was it as an anthropologist watching that?
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. There you go.
That's good to know. How was it as a mathematician?
Interesting. How was it as a chemist?
It was boring. There was no chemistry.
Yeah, there was a lack. If I would say anything about this film, it was a lack of chemistry. Well, or was there?
Oh!
Bit of chemistry going on later. What did you think of the first scene where they kissed?
I probably objectively thought,
Yep.
no, she's having a panic attack here.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? Take a step back. But as a hopeless romantic, what a scene! I swooned. I bloody swooned.
In other words, you felt the same as Lily, right?
Yeah.
Like, realised what was happening and shoved him away and then leapt on him. It was wonderful.
She was so like about it afterwards.
Yeah.
She was like, I don't know if I'll... No, I do!
She was like clearly still angry with him and terrified that she was about to be killed by a panther. But, oh, yeah.
Oh. Did you
Fernando.
swim?
You don't look like you should.
That's not the reaction of a man who swims.
What did I think? I thought we're all superstitious. That's what I was thinking.
In the first kiss scene?
Yes, I think I was just too focused on what had happened previously, and then how did he get there so fast? Maybe that's what I was...
Maybe he's the
Superstitious? What are you talking about?
Well, the panther lady, or panther cat, or panther something.
Yeah, panther cat.
It was a panther cat, yeah.
I always thought, well, that doesn't exist.
A panther?
Thank you.
I mean, they do exist, right?
Wait, was it Panther Lady? If it was a Panther Cat,
No, she
then
said it will
yes.
sound like a woman screaming, but it's a panther.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, there is no panther that sounds like a like a woman. Thank you.
Ridiculous
I
advice.
bet there is.
What?
Have you heard some noises cats can make? Even
I've
house
heard
cats.
panthers.
Right. Oh, so I guess this was like a mountain lion, right?
Oh.
Which have a sort of 40 different names across the Americas. And maybe they call it a panther cat, I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a mountain lion of some description.
Yeah. You're obviously not meant to take off your clothes if faced with a mountain lion.
No?
No, you're meant to keep them on and make yourself look bigger.
Oh.
Like, flap out your coat and make a lot of noise,
Well,
apparently.
it worked, didn't
It did
it? Because it mauled that petticoat or whatever it was. How many layers of clothes does she wear?
I thought this. It's like, wow, it really is the olden days, isn't it? She's wearing her
quite a lot
under
left on.
petticoat and her over-under petticoat and her main petticoat.
Sub-under petticoat.
Oh, you think she was still wearing a lot even though... Yeah, in fact, in the summer, I wear less than what she was wearing when he met her. And that was after she'd taken off like 4 layers. Amazing. Yeah.
Why were they still wearing really long skirts?
No wonder she was boiling all the time.
Like, how is that remotely useful for women to be in big skirts that get caught in all the brush and all the trees? And you can't farm because it drags the ground with it. Oh, it's just so impractical. I would have thought better of them.
Yeah, get some trousers.
Just get some trousers, mate. Yeah. Viney!
Yeah, Viney wore a big dress, didn't she?
Oh, Viney.
She was good. She was not an impractical woman, though.
No, she knew. She knew her way around a shotgun.
Oh my god.
What did we all think of the other woman arriving at the end in the church and shooting the philanderer? So there was the child that was born.
Yeah.
So the mum's husband was having an affair with the priest's daughter, I assume. And then she arrived and just shot the guy, like out of nowhere. Was that in keeping with the story, or for me it was just a bit unnecessary? I didn't.
Yeah, I think they were trying to fling in some more excitement.
It was just a bit of extra drama. No.
I thought it fit in perfectly. It fit right into the vicious cycle. Somebody had acted in a reckless and selfish way, sleeping around, not look after his children, going back to look after his children, partly because Lily had told him to, and this just begot more anger, more feuding, and so in the end he got shot, and this surely only made things worse. Just this same spiral going round and round, making things worse, just as we saw with Bastro.
Oh,
Yeah, and the way they had her raise the gun and fire, and then the next scene was the funeral. It just, I'd say, rather than them trying to inject, what's the word you used? Drama. They almost treated it as if it was just nothing. Just this kind of thing happens all the time.
Yeah, they didn't do the thing where someone threatens someone with a weapon and then talks for ages with the weapon on show.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't know that was a threat until she just shot him. And you have to think the rest of the people there did as well. So yeah, it didn't do that. That frustrates me in films. I'm going to kill you, Mr. Bond. And I'm going to explain every detail, Mr. Bond.
While you look for a way to escape.
Mr. Bond.
Yeah, she just shot him.
I know, if you're going to shoot someone, that's how you do it, I suppose.
But if you didn't think that worked very well, then that's your opinion.
We didn't know enough about her to know whether that was...
Yeah. It's not the thing I'm interested in at this point.
Okay.
I was just glad he was back. He's fine, man.
I have a question.
Ooh!
Um,
Is it symbolic?
Nah.
Okay.
Does it symbolise a question?
I mean, I wrote it down, if that's what you mean.
Go on.
A lot of bad stuff happened that could have discouraged Lily. And she kept on pushing through it, even when the guy threw her machine down the hill, probably breaking it. She just said, well, we'd better carry on then, hadn't we? She would not give up. And at the end, she gave up and said, let's leave. And even when the thing was handed to her on a platter with her new assistant coming over from Merry England, she wasn't interested anymore. And it seemed that this happened after the school burned down. what happened that she gave up then? Why did she give up so completely?
Oh,
Right, here we go.
the school was, as an institution, symbolised her rigidity and prejudice. And once it was gone,
Oh my
she
God.
had learned that actually you shouldn't take things from people, even if you think you're compensating them a tiny bit by putting their names in, sometimes giving one a fan. That actually what she was doing was robbing a heritage site and exploiting them. And the fire was her turning point of, actually, I can just live now in the moment and stop my incredible obsession with taking this and putting it in a museum, because it's being lived and I want to live.
Okay.
That's my thought.
She wanted to sell it, though, on wax cylinders.
Right. Well,
That was her big plan for...
Yeah.
yep.
So what, she was replacing one thing with something possibly more exploitative
Yeah.
and more...
But hopefully she would put that money back into the community.
She would bury the money.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, and
Give it back to the
the
land.
metals would nourish the soil, and therefore the vegetables.
Wait,
would
metals
be-
you ultimately come from the earth, right? So she was just putting the minerals back
She was-
to where they
yeah.
belong. I think two things happened. One, she got that letter where she was told that someone else was going to finish the work that she was doing, and not only that she was going to be the assistant, not the main author. And she was so discouraged, and she saw that as inevitable. And she was so discouraged by that, and, well, the thing with the school. And she fell in love with this man.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a combination of those three things. She was like, someone else is coming. Someone else is going to take credit for what I've already done. I've gone through a lot of challenges here, including the last one, which is just school getting burnt, and then I'm falling in love with this man. I'd rather just do something else. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Which is why I think that once she discovered that she was not going to be the assistant, but that person wanted to be the assistant, and she was going to be the main author. And what then? And you should listen. You not only you now have someone who is also, well, perhaps equally as knowledgeable as you, or perhaps has the same similar education to you that could help you collect the music. So it would, as in, plus you've already done the work, so maybe doing it again would be slightly easier.
Yeah.
So why are you giving up now?
Yeah. And you don't know why she would now give up.
Well, she found a man.
Love happened. This is why you should never fall in love. Thank you.
Yeah.
For me, it made sense. I don't know why.
Okay, it
But-
made sense that she would leave.
Yeah, she had collected the data. She had done the intellectually interesting things. She'd found out all these things.
Yeah.
The act of, like, recording it properly and publishing it just wasn't important to her anymore. She had experienced it. She'd lived the life. She'd heard the songs, and now, like, that just wasn't a priority anymore. It was...
Her quest was over.
Yeah, she'd done her bit, and then the fact that it was going to get written down by someone else didn't matter. It was going to be written down. So she could just walk away from it and live a simpler, happier life.
Okay.
Hmm.
That
As
ties
indeed
in well
her
with...
love interest trying to teach her when he was playing the banjo with his friend. He was like, nice for a living.
Yeah.
Do you forget that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go fucking mine.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
would you?
And what you say ties in with what Laura says about the school burning down. That school was apart from anything, it contained all of her recordings, all the work she'd done, and the destruction of that school was a symbol, was a major point that must have made her rethink.
Maybe the idea of, so I called you out on the selling the wax cylinders, but maybe that was her way of spreading it beyond the intellectual elite.
True, yeah.
It was just get it to the people, normal people who listen to music, who live their life. Why should that be kept within academia, within tomes? Record it, play it for people.
Yeah, she was going to go and record the music in a way that would cause the music to be heard by more people and shared, and the joy of it to be experienced.
Don't know.
I want to ask you a question, Laura. You've got a very different point of view from me, I think, in whether you think the Songcatcher was justified. It sounds like you're not at all happy with her going around writing down these songs.
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, the direction of power is very unequal. She is coming in as an academic, as a researcher.
Yeah.
She was I don't think we were meant to sympathise with her when Bisto questioned whether she was paying them appropriately, and she said, I'm doing all the work, I'm collecting it, it's my initiative to do this, so I'm entitled. She was very entitled. That's what I felt. It was a very entitled, privileged position for her to take, of just assuming that actually this knowledge is here for me to collect and me to take, to make my career out of it. And because I'm taking the initiative to do it, I'm entitled to do that. That was my opinion. What about you?
When I saw that scene, I saw that as an example of how I thought it was supposed to be an example of how insular and small-minded Bisto was, because he wouldn't even allow somebody to come in and listen to some songs and record them for posterity. It seemed to me that what she was doing was a good thing for humanity, to preserve their culture and to keep what they had created and make sure it wasn't lost, and that he could feel that she was somehow taking from him seemed close-minded.
Well, he did ask, he was like, what are you paying her? And she said, nothing.
No, she said, I offered, and she refused.
Yes, but again, I'm uncomfortable with that, because she was very willing to just be like, okay, well, I'll pick in a minute. Which is, it's one of those difficult things. But certainly, listen, in anthropology, we're faced with this, because that was certainly the tradition where one white person, normally a man, very privileged, would go off into these other cultures and just take knowledge for themselves, use it to boost their own career, playing on this trope of, I have to preserve it, it's vanishing, it's a vanishing world, they're dying, I have to preserve it for other white people to learn about. And even though that's not the case here, because they were obviously all white. But there's still power dynamics at play a little bit.
That doesn't mean it's a bad idea to do it, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think part of decolonising anthropology is accepting that we shouldn't do that anymore. We shouldn't use those tropes and assume that we're entitled to that knowledge as white people.
Do you not think all of humanity is entitled to all knowledge?
No, not at all.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
No, I think it's exploitative.
We shouldn't all...
Is it harmful?
Yes, I think it's incredibly harmful, because it paints... Well, one, again, not really to do with this film, but since I'm getting onto the track of it, there's no way to perceive it outside of your own... So that's what ethnocentrism is, that you can't perceive it outside of your own cultural lens. So the knowledge you're taking, you're assuming is objective and scientific, when actually what you're doing is interpreting it in a way that is probably not accurate. And yeah, I think it is harmful, because then that image of that community that you've painted becomes very solidified and cemented in a white Western literature way, which has repercussions for years and years and years, and leads to this kind of idea that native or indigenous people are vanishing and that their worlds are being lost. And which actually undermines the fact that they are being threatened by capitalist hegemonic forces and structural issues.
Yeah, but they are.
Yes, I know,
Cultures
but
really are being lost, aren't they?
no, because we're all part of the same contemporary world. And yes,
Yeah.
okay, you do have threats to environment and things like that, but it's not, because if you play on that, if you take that too much, what you end up doing is giving an image of a culture that's static, which isn't the case. Culture's never static.
that's
It's
true.
always moving with the environment and what's around it. Yeah.
But preserving more information and knowledge can only improve that, right? Otherwise,
It's
all we
not
know
for
is
white people to do that with indigenous knowledge, and also it's to assume that there aren't indigenous scholars doing that, which there are, and which is a lot better than just anyone
Sure.
assuming that there's no power dynamics at play and that it's fine to just take anything that you can.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's just information. If you're looking at that through a lens, right?
Mhm.
Albeit white middle-aged man from a middle class background,
Yes.
you're not taking anything away from someone by learning from them.
You could do harm to them, though, by the interpretation that you put upon them, and you will have a biased interpretation.
You have, I
a very
completely agree.
subjective interpretation, which is why we need diversity in researchers and knowledge people.
I just can't.
Also, knowledge is, I think, not also this unharmful thing that could never do damage. Knowledge is what power comes from. So, look, back in the 50s and 60s, you would have anthropologists go in and use this kind of interpretation to keep up very colonial powers, using the knowledge that they had gathered that these people were not civilized, they were different, and they had savage practices and things, which has continued on in all studies today, all scientific studies today, I think.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like abuse of that knowledge, whether or not it's deliberate.
It's not
It's
only,
damaging.
it's not even that there was pure knowledge to begin with.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know, I've had a margarita, we'll go with the around there.
Well,
What did you
No,
ask me?
I'm really enjoying this. This is
I can't believe that it's better not to seek to understand other cultures.
But people are just living their lives, though. This is
Sure.
the problem, that we have this entitlement that I don't think is just because we think we have this idealization of any knowledge is good knowledge and it's ours for learning of. When actually, no, I don't think it is. That's how we end up killing people and
But it's
taking
also
their
how we
stuff.
end up understanding people, right? If all we think of them, so much has been. There's been so much damage done by people not understanding each other because we don't speak their language and we can't read things they write down, and maybe we don't write. Different cultures failing to learn about each other must be one of the biggest reasons for human suffering and war. Surely it would be better.
But let them represent themselves. They don't need us to give them a voice. Also, the fact that
Sure.
white people did that, this has become a bit of a race thing, but the fact that white
Yeah.
people did that was used to oppress them further, and it's still used that. We're built on a very systemically racist, colonised society, and I think there were elements of that in this film. Just bring it back to...
we should remember the context of the film, I guess.
but the oppressed people were white, Laura.
Well, yes, true, but there was class issues at play, which I think
Nah,
are
sorry,
very different.
I was
but
being facetious.
But that's true. No, that matters that they were white. That makes it different. I would be totally against her if she was with an indigenous community.
Right.
All the outraged.
It's just that so in this film, they could barely read. They weren't writing down their own history. They had these songs that they didn't even know where they were from. They didn't know that these songs were 200 years old. And in another 100 years, those songs might have disappeared, and this moment in time would have been lost forever. They had, as we saw, as she got more and more into the culture, when she arrived, she thought they were just ignorant. And when she had spent some time with them, she realised that it was a whole beautiful, rich culture but no one was writing this down, no one was communicating this with the outside world. It told her so much about the ways that songs travel, and so, as she even said in the bit towards the end, I think what I really wanted to do is not preserve the songs, but preserve the voices that were singing the songs. She wanted to preserve this beautiful culture that she'd found, and it just seems so sad to me to think that we would just lose that, because they weren't going to record it. They didn't realise it was important, as no one realises their own little ways are important.
I think that, well, it's important to her.
Oh, surely
Why
it's objectively
should they
important.
realise what's important to her?
Yeah, exactly. They have this oral history. It's travelled for hundreds of years. There's no sense that actually it's going to vanish. That's, again, a white Western trope, to assume that worlds that you don't understand.
Of course it's going to vanish. Everything vanishes.
Well,
the only reason we know anything is that we've been writing things down. We don't know anything that happened more than 3,000 years ago, because people only started writing stuff down. We know so much that happened in the last 3,000 years that's utterly vanished from oral history.
Only what certain people thought was important.
Yes.
Yeah, so we should try to write down as much as we can. You can't fix that by writing down less. You can only fix it by writing down more.
But this is a perfect example of the fact that their oral history had continued on for so long. And they probably had changed the things, and things had moulded with time, and the songs became a little bit different.
Yes, the songs had changed.
Why is that a bad thing?
Because it'll be lost.
Why is that? Does that matter to you?
It matters because it's... I guess, why does any history matter? Yeah, because it tells us who we are. It tells us how people live their lives, how people lived their lives before, how that we can learn from the past, and we can see what's...
This is to privilege, though, the written word, when actually the oral histories have done that. They're as strong as that. And other histories that aren't written down are as meaningful and valid and accurate, like Incan keepers, for instance. They didn't have written language, and people assumed that they weren't civilized because of that, when actually they had very sophisticated technologies and ways of recording things that happened that were not written down.
Yeah. But they suffer from the telephone game, Chinese whispers. These things do get corrupted after a couple of generations. If you write things down, stuff gets corrupted and changed. But just telling people things, this is how sort of you can follow back written history, and there's all these credible things happening, and then 200 years before that there are people fighting dragons, and there's no the only difference there is things get exaggerated, people can't remember things perfectly. Even something like the Iliad, that was to a word for word perfect poem, was passed down through oral translation, and huge chunks of it don't make sense until someone wrote it down and preserved it properly.
But someone's interpretation of this, which is, again, you're assuming that the written word is pure and accurate, when actually it's not, it's just subjective.
I think it's maybe more pure and accurate
preserves
than,
its accuracy.
Say, 20 tellings of it to a chain of people. Person 1 writes it down, that's their interpretation of it. If person 1 tells person 2 up to person 20, it's 20 people's interpretation of it.
But that's more, to me, rich. That's heritage, that's history, that's how things evolve, because nothing is static, and we're just assuming that actually this one interpretation is fine.
That one interpretation from the one person you've spoken to.
Yeah.
Not from the 20
No, I think
generation.
you do have...
But you can't tell what's what. You can't tell what's nonsense, what was introduced last week and what was introduced 500 years ago.
I guess we just have different priorities, because I would find that interesting.
I would rather have a written history from the 20 people and see how that changed.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with starting recording now? Like, in
They've got the
thousands...
same problem, I think.
But it's just that you've got what each of those 20 people thought about the thing, their interpretation of it. None of them are completely objective, but surely having 7 billion versions of what this world is like written down in 1,000 years will be more useful than one person's telling to 1,000 years worth of generations of mistold stories.
You say mistold, but I don't see it that way, as being mistold. I see it as a way it's growing and changing and is representative of probably what's happening in the moment.
Yes, but not in the original moment.
No, but that's the problem,
what
that
happened
I don't
20
care about
years
the
ago.
original moment.
But that's so important, right? That the only reason we know that
We'd have
white
enough
people
of it.
went to India and committed atrocities and ruined cultures is because there were people writing it down. Even if those people were often the people committing the atrocities, we can still see things went wrong. Otherwise, in 200 years, we've got some random person's interpretation, my interpretation of it, with no knowledge of anything that happened before I was born. I'm like, oh, India's some country. I think something happened there a few years ago.
Ah, but if you'd had the history of oral storytelling, you would have the stories.
I'd have the history of oral storytelling with the prejudices of every single person who told me in that chain of...
And not necessarily,
even
you're
in my
assuming that
lifetime,
it's all...
10 people back to when those things happened.
You're assuming it's all coming down to individuals and individual perspectives, when actually we're talking about communities and bodies of people passing down histories orally, which is a very, I think, valid way of passing knowledge down. And yes, sure, there will be minute changes here and there that will reflect the time. But if you have the expertise to interpret them, you could still get the...
How'd you get that expertise?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not from an oral storytelling culture, but I'm sure they would tell you could. I just think it's a very ethnocentric thing to privilege the written word over oral.
But surely that's subjective as well, any interpretation.
Everything is subjective, Claire. Everything.
No, something written down
Even
is precisely the same as what was written down when the person wrote it. If somebody sits down and says, this is my opinion, and in 300 years you look at the page they wrote, there's no spin or interpretation that's happened to that. It's precisely the same.
If that were true, we'd have a perfect history of everything that happened since we started writing things down.
We need to try and gather all these different points of view from many years ago, because people had different opinions back then.
But there'd be no need for historians if we did that. Historians are basically
the whole point
anthropologists.
The whole point of historians is to gather these different genuine primary sources, rather than just saying, oh, my dad told me that something happened 200 years ago. That's the only source I've got, so I guess it's true.
I think that's to slightly invalidate these huge cultural traditions of oral history.
No, yes, oral history has something going for it, and it's more complicated than simply hearsay. But if you actually want to know what happened, what genuinely happened a long time ago,
you'd have to trust the one person who wrote it down, who probably has their own.
You have to trust the 100 people that wrote it down. Hopefully, you have to draw on as many different sources as possible. Why is that
different from the 100 people who are telling the same story? From having heard it through the...
Because most of them weren't there at the time, and they're all drawing on one original source.
No, not necessarily. There's probably multiple sources going that have fused.
But what happens when all of the people in that civilization disappear?
Well, that's the problem, is they don't disappear. Why would they disappear? Oh, please tell me.
For example, there is a city called Teotihuacan, approximately an hour from Mexico City. Everyone from that culture has disappeared.
Well, they didn't all die.
They all died.
How did they all die, Fernando?
We do not know. The city itself was just buried in mountains. So at some point, not long ago, less than 100 years ago, someone realized that the civilization was there. And they dug everything, dug the pyramids from the mountains. And there's no written records, so nobody knows nothing about that city. It's just that it existed there because the pyramids are there. But because there is no civilization and no people remembering anything that happened, literally you go there, visit the places, and the thing that tell you, they basically tell you, we know nothing about the civilization. There's nothing that can tell us what happened here.
Look, I'm not fighting against writing things down. I think it's a great idea to write things down. I'm just saying, don't disregard oral storytelling and oral histories.
No.
I don't know how we got onto this, but yes, that is a valid example. However, speaking of any indigenous people right now in the contemporary world, as though they are vanishing, is a harmful trope that has persisted since we began encountering any sort of cultures that were not our own.
But we know small cultures are vanishing. They are in danger, right? The fact that this has been going on for a long time and has sometimes been overstated.
There's
doesn't mean
no
it's not
such thing as
true.
a static culture that is bounded,
Sure.
even geographically, culturally, spatially, people-wise. It's moving in and out. And yes, as I'm trying to say, it's very difficult because, yes, there are real threats to people where their homes are being destroyed or, like, these huge capitalist forces are coming in and changing everything. But people also adapt, and to think of things as static is what leads to just incredible racism against them. It's one of those difficult things. People have always talked about Native Americans as vanishing, or
and they've dramatically vanished, right?
No.
They're not all gone, but huge amounts of their
they had a genocide committed against them.
exactly. That was dreadful.
To still talk of them as though they're vanishing and we must preserve them is to talk as though they're not human beings who, like, move in and out of different spaces and different cultures and different things. It's difficult for me to even talk about because I don't know these things, and I'm just putting my own perspective on it that I've been taught by my very white department.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to, like, go back to many indigenous societies and people, anthropologists particularly, but everyone who's come across them has been like, they're vanishing, we must protect them, we must preserve this, we must just keep everything as it is because I have this idea of them.
I do have an article about another civilization in Latin America where there is basically, and there's literally just one person remaining. So once that person dies, there will be no one who speaks that language anymore.
Doesn't it just tear your heart thinking no one will be able to speak it anymore?
Should
It's like you didn't say a word, Laura.
I can't.
So surely, if we and ask him the questions, his knowledge will probably disappear. I mean, is he vanishing?
Surely it can't be a bad thing to ask him about his childhood, jot a few things down, and put it in a book.
I mean, there are some video recordings now because the New York Times published it.
Brilliant.
But
Well, I don't want to speak for you, but I think the idea is that someone would write that down. Someone would be the person who interpreted what he said. And therefore, it would be not, it wouldn't necessarily be representative of his culture. It would be some conglomeration of what he said to this person and how that was interpreted by the person.
But there are two ways that we can tackle that, and one is to give up and say, well, then there's no point, and the other is to say, well, then we should try and do it as scientifically and precisely as possible. We should try and make sure we don't just write stuff down. We should film him. We should record his voice. We should do things that aren't open to subjective.
All things are open to, even film. Film is so subjective.
It's better though, isn't it?
No, not even.
No?
No.
Filming something is not less subjective than just
Everything-
writing down stuff that you think?
Yes.
You must have heard the idea that a director can elicit an emotion from the same shot.
Yeah.
Just depending on angle and closeness and
But
stuff like that.
we have to try, don't we? We can't just say, well, we'll never get this perfect, so fuck it. Just stop studying
so
cultures.
I think the trouble would be treating your effort as an authority on the matter. And once you've only got one record of it, once you've got a record of this man and his language, and you say, this is what it is, which is what we're prone to do, because we say we collected the data scientifically, I think you'd need the caveats. You need the idea that this is not objective and not factually correct information. It is just an interpretation of someone's interaction. But we treat it as fact.
Right.
When we read letters from Cicero,
Yeah.
we don't take into account Tiro's interpretation in writing it down.
Yeah.
His misunderstanding or anything like that. And then any changes in translation or...
So, yeah, the monks over the years
the order
translations
they're
are good,
published in or anything like that. You take it as an authoritative source, and that's the danger.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm finding this fascinating.
Yeah. I just can't see that it'd be better if we didn't have those letters.
But some things just aren't for you. And that's the bottom line. Some things just aren't for you, and you're not entitled to go and take them.
What if someone willingly gives them?
Again, though, there's still power dynamics at play, and you can't put it all down on individuals. I don't know, I'm still working through these things myself, and decolonising anthropology is like a big topic at the moment, and it's something that I probably don't understand as well as some other people.
That's really interesting. I don't imagine this will be in the podcast. This is just...
This will be a bugger to edit. It's been like 2 hours. No, that's really interesting. Definitely some stuff to think about. And yet you haven't convinced me, and I don't think I've convinced you.
Not at all.
But, yeah.
I think your argument is hinged on the fact that we should just record everything for posterity.
Yeah.
Without looking at the histories of harm that has been done just by doing that. And by and assuming that continuing to do that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I do think... Yeah,
Right,
in the end, I think that we should attempt to record and pass down as much knowledge as we can, because I wish we had more knowledge about the past now. I think it would help us make our own decisions better. I think it would help us to understand each other and get on better as a global
I'm specifically
society.
talking about white people doing that, though. Which I think you're also
Right.
talking about without realising that you're talking about doing that. Because your argument is based that everyone should be able to access everything. And my argument is that actually, if you go by that, what ends up happening is that white people end up doing that.
I would love it if everybody... I hope we're writing down enough about white culture as well. I think we are. And I hope that one day in the future, everybody, regardless of race, will be able to study the past. And I hope that when they do so, they won't just be able to read about what happened in Europe. I hope that they'll at least have some understanding of what happened in the past.
Many diverse scholars and researchers who are doing that.
I hope so.
Without relying on this idea that things are vanishing and must be preserved, which I think is innately harmful. But whilst I acknowledge that there is mass damage being done by many different forces that should be addressed and stopped, without simplifying it down to vanishing worlds, the vanishing native, the noble savage, etc., etc.
Okay.
But it's not for everyone, and we shouldn't be entitled to all kinds of knowledge just for the sake of it. That's my argument.
Okay.
Because you're ignoring a vast history of people doing that. But yeah, that's...
I think we've both made our cases. I think we've all made our
No,
cases.
I would not accept it. I can't. I just can't. Oh, we'll talk about it some other time then.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I at least understand what you're saying. Though I don't think I agree with it. Anyone have any other thoughts about the film? This was a film, it was the Songcatcher.
Songcatcher. Even the name elicits, thievery, doesn't it? It's like the child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Sorry, I've been silly. I don't remember anything about the film now.
I'll play the music.
Yeah, that's what... Did you have any other thoughts, Fernanda?
I would like to say again that I still cannot believe that she left without trying again.
It wasn't for her!
Nearly didn't put my hand on my heart there.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think anymore.
Thanks for the discussion.
Thank you. I have to battle those opinions every anthropology tutorial.
Sure.
Always from the men.
I can only apologise for that.
No, I'm just saying, but our own positions inform our perspectives and debates.
This is a good song.
What's this?
It's the same song, but a different rendition, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, an interpretation of a song.
Whoa!
I'll just jot this down and put a few extra quavers in there. What do we got?
Wait.
Dum da da dum. M.
M for Michael.
And for me.
Well, I have an M film for us.
Oh.
The next film is The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Wait, I'm just going to write this down because I always forget.
The Muppets Take Manhattan.